Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting in just a second. Got Ben with us today. Dan is a
Hello.
bit busy. He's actually at the Microsoft event, which is still ongoing. Just not for us because Microsoft didn't want to show us the rest of the event, unfortunately. But yeah, no, we'll be talking all about the Copilot stuff today because that's what Microsoft announced. Loads of Copilot stuff, whether you like it or not.
Everybody loves AI. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Just got to call it something else.
Yep, indeed. All right, so let me get my sound recorder up. Right, I'm sort of ready to go, and you are, Ben. Are you able to get your Audacity running?
Yeah, it's going.
Brilliant. I'll get mine going as well. So I'll do the countdown 3, 2, 1, and then after one, so on go, we'll do a clap. So 3, 2, 1, clap, and then we can basically get started. Where's my thing? One sec. There it is.
I can't help but imagine when you say sound recorder, I just imagine you're using like the Windows 95, the little one with the little sound wave. Like you're just still using that. There's
Oh,
nothing
I'm
wrong with
using
it.
the modern version with
Yeah.
Windows 11 because that's actually really good. It works really quite well. Anyway, let's do this quick clap thing. So 3, 2, 1. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Windows Central podcast. I'm Zac Bowden, and this week I'm joined with Ben Wilson, who is taking the place of Daniel this week because Daniel is currently in Redmond as we speak at the Microsoft 50th anniversary celebration event, which unfortunately isn't being live streamed. They did have a section of it that was live streamed. That was the Copilot stuff, which we will be talking about in today's episode. But the actual 50th celebration, for whatever reason, is not being live streamed. And so we have to sit here without it. And instead, we're going to talk about Copilot and all the other bits and bobs Microsoft announced today. Ben, how are you?
I'm good. It's a shame, honestly, they're not streaming it because what
I
Dan's
agree.
putting on the live blog looks quite fun. They're doing like a quiz and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
But at least we get to see it from his perspective.
is very much that they're having a bit of a jokey time by the looks of things. So media who were invited are allowed to live blog the 50th celebrations, but they're just not streaming it for some reason. So if you want to know what's going on, you can check out the Windows Central live blog for that. Dan is there in the audience as we speak, typing away, detailing all the stuff that's happening on stage. I believe they've had Brenda Song on stage to interview Steve Ballmer and make jokes of Bill Gates. They've made references to themselves, how the old Xbox, the original Xbox, was a massive tanker of a thing, and sort of made poking fun at themselves and all of the great software and not so great software they've made over the last 50 years. So yeah, that's pretty cool. But yeah, as Ben said, it is kind of a shame that they're not live streaming that because I think for fans of Microsoft who aren't able to attend, because it's not just Microsoft employees who are fans of Microsoft, it's other people too, including us. We sadly don't get to tune in, but that's okay, Ben, because we have a whole lot of Copilot stuff to talk about today. So Microsoft held a Copilot event. That was basically what they announced today. They tied it in with their 50th stuff, but they live streamed about an hour and 10 minutes of Copilot announcements. And there's some quite big stuff here. So we'll basically just go through it, I think, as they announced it or as it's sort of unveiled in the blog post that they published today. And we'll start with memory and personalization. So Copilot is getting the ability to remember you as a person, which is one of the things that I've always said about Copilot, is that it's kind of weird that every time you go to it, it's like a clean slate. It doesn't know you don't know it, and you're basically learning your preferences together as you go. And to be fair, Copilot often does have a slightly different personality every time you go to it. Sometimes it'll answer questions, sometimes it won't. And so Microsoft is trying to fix that with Copilot memory in a way that as you chat to it normally, if you're talking to it like a friend, it will just sort of learn about you and it will remember all the stuff it learns. So it will learn about your likes and dislikes, your preferences, and it can also remember things about people you mentioned in your life, so your friends and family. And so it can refer back to things in conversation down the line, like a real person would. And it's supposed to make Copilot feel more human. Now, I think it makes Copilot creepy. But this is really kind of what we want from an AI system, right? Especially one that Microsoft is trying to position as your virtual friend, which I think is very clearly what they're trying to do with Copilot. Unlike ChatGPT and Gemini, which very much are, they're being positioned as AI tools for coding and data management and all this other stuff. Copilot seems to be going the other direction of being very or this very soft service. It's all about just talking with a friend and just being human and all this other stuff. Ben, what are your thoughts on this direction? What are your thoughts on Copilot memory? I'm curious if this is something you are going to find value in.
I do. I like it, to be honest. So, one of the things of like the most recent like AI stuff, right? All the AI chatbots. OpenAI sort of got there first with. I remember when ChatGPT's mobile app, they started charging for premium, so you could get the conversational mode with the really good voice models that sounded suspiciously like that actress who I've forgotten.
Yeah,
Um,
Scarlett Johansson.
there you go. It wasn't really her, but it sounded a lot like her.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's one of my favorite upgrades to like the recent Copilot mobile app is the conversational speech. And
yeah,
I know what you mean by creepy, but I want more of it because I prefer using the speech thing than anything else. I often talk to Copilot and it sounds really sad when I put it like this. When I'm on the treadmill, because I hate typing, so I just my mind starts to wander, and I just I'm going to ask it this, and it always comes on really friendly with, "Hey Ben, how's the weather today?" Da da da. It talks to you like that, but
yeah,
like you say, it doesn't remember anything I talked about unless I have to keep talking to it every time. And I don't mind as long as there's obviously if you're tying it to your account, there'll be a privacy sort of disclaimer that you'll agree to, and as long as you understanding that, that's fine. But I'm all for it. I want that. I want that conversational stuff. It knows what I've asked for previously. I like it. I'm all for it. I don't mind it learning about me and things that I tell it. And then obviously, if I decide to tell it about friends and family, that's on me. But I like it. I really like the conversational stuff. I find it way more interesting than prompt engineering and things like
yeah.
that, and weird things. Like it's comical to get things out of. We made AI say this. Oh my god! But it's like no, I like just saying I don't have to think, oh, the guy who knows everything about this is at work right now. I'll just see what Copilot thinks and then relay it with him. I like it.
Yeah, I think the example that you used there of you being like on the running machine and working out, doing some exercise, and you happen to mention that's Copilot in a conversation. Copilot can now sort of refer back to that at a later point and go, "Yeah, how was your run earlier?" And like a human would, which is again the whole point. They want to make Copilot feel more like a human, and so it is. I do think it's cool. I do think it's creepy. Microsoft does say that they will be baking in lots of privacy settings for you to configure with this, so you can control what kind of information it can remember, and you can opt out of it entirely. So if you really don't want Copilot to remember anything about you as you talk to it, you can set that, and so it simply won't. It will forget you every time. Or if you'd like to have the full human experience, you can have it to remember everything. And so everything you ever mention, it will store in memory and apply it. It will essentially create a virtual profile about you. And so it can refer back to things that you mentioned to it and down the line across different conversations, which is really interesting. And this extends into the personalization aspect as well, because Microsoft sort of teased a feature that they appear to be working on. They in the blog post and on stage, they very much announced it as sort of like an experimentation type thing, but they call it Copilot Avatar, and they're essentially building in the ability to give Copilot an identity, a face that appeals to you. So you can customize the avatar however you like. They didn't go into any details about how you customize this avatar, only that you can, and that they showed off some kind of advanced 3D type looking avatar, as well as a very basic 2D avatar, as well as Clippy. So I don't really know again how this system is going to work, whether it's just an image you upload in the back end and then it uses AI to animate it somehow, or if these are going to be like predetermined avatars that you can select from through Microsoft. I have no idea, but they want you to connect with Copilot on a more intimate level, and one of the ways they think they can do that is via an avatar. It's a bit gimmicky in my opinion, and if you listen to Mustafa Suleyman on stage, he sort of even says it's like this won't be for everyone, because I think a lot of people will view it as quite gimmicky. But yeah, it's interesting. I think I'd set it as Clippy or Cortana, because that would be fun. But I can't see. I don't know how this makes me feel more connected to Copilot. Would this work for you, Ben?
Do you know what? It reminds me of the Xbox 360 avatars, when they first started with the 3D
Yeah,
avatars and it was all that type of stuff. And I wonder if it'll be a 3D model like that, but it asks you questions on what you want it to look like, and then it can affect the model. If it does something like that, like, hey, make it look like this person, and you give it a photograph and it sort of makes a 3D model out of that. I could see that happening. But yeah, as soon as they were talking about it, I was like, I want Clippy, or I want the dog. Do you remember the dog? Do you remember the dog's
oh
name? I remember
yes,
the dog's
the
name.
Windows XP search dog. I do not remember its name.
Rover. I'd have
Rover.
Rover.
I can't believe you remember the name.
Yeah, man. I had Rover and Clippy, and I installed all the software on my parents' computer and broke it. No, I like it, but it depends how it comes out. I've seen I've seen a lot of attempts at that type of stuff, not only from Microsoft, but recently, I know Meta have a similar thing where you have like a virtual. Well, of course they do, don't they? They have the virtual avatar because they have all the metaverse stuff. But when they changed it recently, I was on the Quest, and now my avatar looks terrifying because they've changed the style. It doesn't look like me at all. So I don't know. It depends how stylized you're going to be. Do I want to talk to an avatar? Or I don't know. I think I'd probably just have a charming little goofy character, but I guess they just need something to humanize it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll last forever. I feel like the people in charge of the team of making avatars might do it for a while, and then they just go like, "What are we doing?"
Yeah. Yeah. I guess because I guess right now the Copilot chat interface is either a text field or it's if you're in the voice mode, it's like a is it
It's an
not like the
orb.
sea? Yeah, or like an orb or something sort of like serene, which
You just ponder the orb.
yeah, yeah. So I guess maybe giving it a face actually does work here because you're right. It is quite a faceless experience right now. And again, if you look at all the stuff Microsoft is doing with Copilot, how they're pushing it to be like this sort of virtual friend, of course it needs to have an avatar. This faceless identity doesn't work for it if it's trying to go down this road. So yeah, we'll be interested to see if that actually shows up because, like I said, they did sort of announce it as an experimentation. I do think they want to do this, but whether or not it ships is, I think, another question entirely. So that's the memory and
I'll stay
personal.
optimistic. I'll stay
Yeah, yeah.
optimistic. I'd like to think they could pull it off. You know, if they make a sort of really flexible face rig and it can be like really animated and quite funny to look at, you know, it's got an appeal. But
Yeah.
we'll see. But fingers crossed they do something cool and not weird.
You know, Microsoft trying to position Copilot as like a virtual friend is really interesting for a number of reasons. One of the reasons why I think they're going to struggle with this is because I don't think humanity is there yet. I don't think it's socially acceptable to be friends with an AI as of yet. I still think people will make fun of you for it if you genuinely do try to use it that way, which is sad. Don't get me wrong. I don't think people should be making fun of people for anything, really. But I think that is just the way of the world as things currently stand. But in addition to that, even if AI does get to a point where it can be that, like a real virtual friend that does remember you, that is able to complete tasks for you, this, that, and the other, um, I don't think Microsoft's Copilot is going to be the AI assistant to do it, only because of Microsoft's squeaky clean reputation and how it sort of put Copilot on guardrails. You can't. A real friend is usually a bit risky. They'll make a risky joke. They'll say a risky thing. You know how it is. People are human. People make mistakes. People swear. Copilot doesn't do any of that. It's like talking to a politician. Nobody wants to be friends with a politician. And so Microsoft, if they really want to sort of go down this route of making Copilot like as human as possible, like a real friend, they need to sort of let it off the rails a little bit, in my opinion. Do you agree with that?
Yes. So I know what you're saying. That it's funny because earlier today, I guess because you know Bill Gates and Ballmer and all that, they're all at the event. There was a video they released earlier today where they had Copilot interview all three of them, and then Satya asked it to roast them, and it was talking about Ballmer's attitude. You think you're going to fry the AI and all this stuff?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, but you have to prompt it to roast you.
Right.
But I know what you're saying. I think but we write about this quite a lot about the guardrails, right? And how OpenAI's sort of plain vanilla ChatGPT can sort of get a bit unhinged. And then Microsoft is
Mm.
like, whoa, calm that down a bit and put it
Yeah,
into
yeah.
Copilot. But yeah, I think maybe it would have because like I remember when Copilot got the modes, it had it was three modes. It was more creative, more balanced, or something like
That's
that.
right.
Maybe it would come in with something like, hey, do you want me to be professional, playful, or balanced, or something like that? And maybe it could switch, and then it'd have more permissions. But yeah, I think by default it'll be very cookie cutter, like, hello,
Yeah.
it's nice to meet you, and I'm here to serve you, sir. Not like, you know,
Yeah.
change your fashion, something.
Ideally, with the memory stuff, Copilot could sort of learn to identify how you sort of are. So if you are a little bit risky and you
Mm.
do say outlandish things to it, it can sort of respond in a similar way back versus, giving that sort of politically correct answer every single time. Whereas if you're somebody who does talk to it quite professionally, it can identify that and sort of, again, reciprocate in the same way. We don't really know how advanced this memory stuff is. We've only seen what Microsoft has announced yet. All of this stuff that we're talking about today, they've said it's rolling out gradually. Some of it will be part of Copilot Labs, which is Copilot Pro, which means you have to pay for it. Some of it isn't. They haven't been super clear on which is what, but yeah, to keep that in mind. So this stuff is slowly rolling out as of today, technically, but not all of it is of today. And some of it will be region dependent, and some of it will be Copilot Pro dependent. Let's move on to Copilot Actions, which is the second big thing they announced today. So Copilot Actions allows the AI assistant to take action on your behalf. Now, as far as I'm aware, this currently only works in websites. So it's basically a Microsoft Edge feature. But you go to Copilot and you can ask it, hey, book me a hotel room in this location. Or, hey, can you reserve me dinner at this restaurant for 7 p.m. or as near to 7 p.m. as you can? And Copilot ideally can be like, yep, it can go and find those websites and make that booking for you. It will, of course, show you the process and it will show you the forms it's filling out as it does it. And it will obviously always give you sign off on anything it's about to book. But it can ideally do all that sort of manual typing in details and stuff for you now. That's a big deal. And this is the sort of agentic stuff we've always wanted Copilot to be able to do. I should be able to just go to my assistant and go, hey, I need a booking for 7 tonight. Can you find me a nice 4-star restaurant in the area? It can go and do that hunting for you. It can give you a list of a selection of the restaurants, or it can find one automatically. I can book this for 7 p.m. Do you want me to go ahead and do that? I'll fill out your name and phone number. Done. And you only really have to press 1 or 2 buttons to get that done. That is a brilliant idea. But is anybody ready to trust Copilot to do that? Even if it is showing you all the stuff it's doing along the way, I don't know if I'm ready for Copilot to buy me a gift for my friends. Are you ready for it, Ben?
So yeah, when I was watching him announce that, I was immediately like, I will never use this. I will never use this. But I've thought about it more. To be honest, as I thought of you first because you said something. I don't know when you said it, but I always call back to it because I'm exactly the same way. Where you say you will never make a big purchase from your phone. You'll make big
Never.
purchases from big screen. It's a big screen purchase. I want the laptop. I'm not booking a holiday or a hotel or anything like over $100 on my phone. That's just outrageous. And I'm the same way. But the sort of other side of it is like you said, it's never surely going to do anything without a confirmation, right? So I feel like yes, if you trained it to say like, no, this is my information and you will always check with me, show me the booking. Cool. I don't mind that, but I feel like a personal use, I'd use it to like book an Uber. I'd use it to maybe order like takeout food. I wouldn't use it to book a hotel room. I wouldn't use it to book a flight. I wouldn't use it for big purchases, but that's just me. But I feel like if it got better over time and I was using it for small things, and then I was just like, wow, I've used it 100 times and it's never gone wrong. Why
Yeah.
not? You've got to trust the process, I guess. I think it's just because it's tied to my money, but then like Edge already remembers my bank card. Edge knows my address. Edge fills all this type of stuff in, and I use that all the time. So I guess it's an extension of that. So yeah, my initial reaction was like, nah, but I think it's just going to be an easing into it type of deal. But the fact that the examples were so ranged, right? Because it was I think it was a flower delivery service and then
Yeah.
booking.com. And I was like, flowers, sure. Booking.com. No, because I'm going to end up in a wrong hotel in the wrong town. But like, yeah, I'd use it for the smaller things and see how it goes, which I imagine most people would. If it can consistently get that right, then yeah, why not? I don't see why not. If it's secure and it gets the details right, fine.
Yeah, this is something me and Dan have talked about a lot before because you've always been able to buy Amazon products via Alexas. It doesn't matter what speaker you've got, you can ask it to buy you something on Amazon, and it will happily do that for you. I've never
I
done it
can
because I
walk.
don't.
I can walk into my parents' house and I can
Yeah,
shout at it to order things, and then
yeah,
they punch me in the arm. Sorry,
yeah.
carry on.
You can do that. I've never done it because I don't even trust the dumb Alexa that's already in the speakers. Right? I don't know if I can trust a generative AI assistant to do that for me. I think it's right. It's one of those things you just have to get used to and accept. Because the thing you just mentioned about Edge automatically filling the stuff in for you is totally right. Copilot is just Edge with a little bit more spice on top. it's you're right. When you put out that, it actually makes a total sense, and it doesn't. Not doing it this way would seem dumb going forward, I
Mm.
think. Because especially like I said, it does present you with all the options and stuff, and it will give you the sign off before it goes. It won't just book it for you and be like, "Hey, I did it, done." You just show up on the day and good luck. It will every step. It'll be like, "Hey, so I found this one. Would you like this restaurant?" You say yes. Then it'll be like, "Okay, I'm filling in your details. Are you happy with this reservation time? If you are, I can go ahead and send off that reservation request." That's kind of how it works, and that's fine. And I think that does make sense. But you're right. When it comes to money, it's a little bit different. I want to see the reviews for the hotel, which I guess you could ask Copilot as you're going through the process. Be like, hey, I know I see you selected this hotel. Give me 5 reasons why this is a good hotel. and maybe it can come up with 5 reasons, or maybe it'll be like, actually, this is a bad hotel. Sorry. So you go,
Yeah,
well,
no, but
not
it
that
could
one.
give you a short list though. It could do that. It could
Yeah.
go, hey, give me 5 hotels, and it goes, okay, and it could cut that part out. It doesn't have to do the whole thing for you. So yeah, you could gradually trust it more over time.
Yeah. So this, as far as I'm aware, only works via the web. So this is websites. It's not apps. It doesn't allow Copilot to interact with apps. At least currently, maybe that's something they're planning to do down the line. It is solely a Copilot service feature, and so this will work ideally on your phone, on the Windows Copilot app, in the Copilot web browser, website, sorry, and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool, I guess. But yeah, this is just another one of those steps towards sort of trusting Copilot to be this virtual assistant that Microsoft really wants you to trust it to be. Copilot Vision, which is a feature that Microsoft actually announced last year. Copilot Vision for Edge allows Copilot to sort of browse the web with you and sort of give suggestions and hints and not hints, but like tips. And you can ask it for help on a website. And in some instances, I believe it can even reach in and interact with some websites. They're now bringing that to Copilot on phone and Copilot on Windows 11. So we'll start with the Copilot Windows 11 stuff because I think that's the most interesting announcement of today, frankly. Copilot Vision for Windows 11 will allow Copilot to see your desktop. This is one of those things that privacy concerns that a lot of people had about Copilot originally. Can it see what I'm working on? Yes, now it can if you let it. It's not just going to just see everything you do all the time, but you can go into the Copilot app, select an app window or the desktop for Copilot to see. It will then take you into the live chat mode, and you can chat to Copilot as you're working in whatever app it is you may be working on. And the whole sole purpose of this really is to allow Copilot to offer suggestions as you're working. Say you're drawing an image in Photoshop and you need some inspiration as you're drawing. You can open Copilot, say, "Hey, Copilot, I'm working on this image, this image I'm drawing. Give me some suggestions. I need some color ideas or shape ideas. I don't know what eyes are doing, stuff like that." And Copilot can see what you've drawn so far and not add to it directly, but give suggestions that you can then take and do yourself. Copilot, at least currently, cannot interact with the app directly, but it can highlight elements of the app for you to click on yourself. So if you asked it, for example, how do I blur the background of this image in Photoshop? It could be like, it can see Photoshop. It can go, hey, you need to click file, and it will highlight file, and then it can highlight the button next, and so on and so on. So it can walk you through the process to achieve tasks, but it won't do the tasks for you. That's not something that's impossible to do, though. This may just be step one, and down the line, Microsoft will introduce a feature that will allow Copilot to reach into the app and do those tasks for you, because I know that's something they've prototyped internally. They didn't announce it today, but it's not something that can't be done with the technology we have. And so I think they just didn't announce that because it is a bit scary to allow an AI control of your system. So step one is allow it to point out the buttons you need to click. Step two is pressing the buttons itself, but we're not there yet. I am actually super interested in this feature. This is, to me, the most exciting thing that they announced today. What are your thoughts on it, Ben?
Yeah, it's like the example of I've seen it a few times now. It's such a corporate example of, oh, you can show it something you're drawing. It can suggest, like, I just feel like nobody does that. But the other side is way more interesting, like you said, is sort of teaching you how to use an app or just letting it do it for you. And Photoshop is a great example because I've used Photoshop since I don't even know when. I don't even know when. I was using Macromedia stuff when Adobe came along. But Photoshop is like one of those apps, and especially as you probably know, Premiere, it's one of those apps of 10,000 buttons, but you maybe use 5 of them, and it's too much is hidden. And if you want to do something simple, like you say, blur a background or cut something out or whatever, and or change the photo hue or the temperature, you just don't know where that is, and it's always go on the web, and some AI summaries are getting it wrong or whatever. But Adobe seems like a big enough vendor to partner up with Microsoft in that degree and allow that type of stuff. Like, we'll allow you to reach in and do this type of thing. And I'd be all for that, because it's just, there are too many apps that have too many moving parts that become like scary. And if it can help me with that, then I'm all for it. I don't think I'd ever use the thing of like, hey, I'm making a drawing of a duck. Give me ideas. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
But if I could say, oh, how do I specifically do this effect? And it just goes like this. Would you like me to do it for you? Yeah, 100%. That's a really cool, like, next gen feature for AI. So I'm all about that. And I know what people have said it from the beginning about the privacy stuff, but like you said, it's only when you allow it. It always has been, and I'm fine with that. I like the idea. The thing that it reminded me of, as soon as they started talking about it before, and especially today, is it's like Microsoft's Circle to Search, on Google.
Yeah,
Circle to Search is so killer, and like there's people in my family, my parents have Android phones, and then they've never heard of. They always buy the latest Samsung Galaxy. They always get the latest Galaxy phone, and they don't even use it. They don't use the stylus. And I said, "Oh, use Circle to Search," and they don't know what it is. And I
yeah.
show them, and they go, "Oh, why would you do that?" I'm like, "Because it's the best thing in the world. What are you talking about?" So Windows needs that. So if you've got, hey, I don't want to go and search for something. I just want to point at it and go, give me information on this. That's really, really
Yeah.
cool. I'm all for that.
It does technically have a circle to search alternative. It has click to do, which actually isn't technically shipping yet, but that is coming and that does what circle to search did. I think the Copilot stuff is more interactive in that it can sort of walk you through
Yeah, yeah.
as you go. And yeah, if it's like a static image or something, click to do is what you'd likely use. Whereas if you're in an app and you need to complete a multi-step process, that's where Copilot Vision comes in, and that will be the thing you want to use for that. Um, yeah, I do think this is really interesting, and yeah, people will complain about the privacy stuff, but again, you don't have to use it. It's not on by default. You have to, like, as we said, manually enable the feature. But I think this might be in part why Microsoft hasn't delivered those promised Copilot integrations across Windows 11 that they announced last year. If you cast our minds back to the Copilot Plus event back in May in 2024, they briefly showed off Copilot integration across the Settings app, File Explorer, and Notifications. This may still arrive in some capacity, but at the time they promised it would come towards the end of 2024, and then it just never did. I'm wondering if Copilot Vision is sort of a replacement for it, because the original plan was you'd go into settings and Copilot buttons would appear along the top for suggested sort of things you might want to complete. But with Copilot Vision, you can just be like, "Hey, Copilot, how do I change to dark mode?" And it can be like, "Oh yeah, you just click on personalization, go down to theme, dark mode is there, done." And so I'm wondering if that's the replacement for this. I kind of hope not, because I think like the notification stuff was really handy. The idea that if you received an email and it was asking you to refer to a document that was sent to you a week ago, Copilot would be able to sort of just put a button in that notification that says open file that it's referring to, which is kind of nice. And I don't think Copilot Vision is that, at least not yet. Um, but yeah, in addition to Copilot Vision for Windows, they did announce it for phones as well. Now, this isn't as exciting, in my opinion, because it doesn't actually view your phone screen. It can only view your camera feed and camera roll. So this is very similar to Google Lens, essentially, in that you can open Copilot, you can point your camera at a thing and go, "Hey, tell me about this thing," and it will do that using Copilot. I'm sure that's useful to some people. I think most people would just use the built-in version of that on their phone, because that's already a thing on phones, and this isn't really a new thing for mobile. If it was analyzing your phone screen and you could like go through apps with it and stuff, it would be a different story. But to my knowledge, you can't do that with Copilot Vision on phone, at least currently. Do you use Copilot on your phone at all, Ben?
Yeah, I use it quite a lot.
You do?
I do.
Okay, I
I do.
don't.
Yeah, because the very first day I bought, so I have a Pixel 7 Pro, and I switched from I'd been on iPhone for a very long time, but
Yeah,
there was something, I think the 7 Pro just got me with the telephoto lens and all this type of stuff. And I got it, but it had been so long since I'd been on Android, and I was complaining about the Google bar, and I switched to Microsoft Launcher day one. And then I got like the Bing bar on there that I replaced with Copilot, which since went away. But then I just got into using the Copilot app. So yeah, I do. I do. The mobile app gets better and better, to be honest. I do really, really like it. But yeah, that's sort of AR type of point your camera at stuff. I feel like
yeah,
I'm always just taking a picture and then circling parts of the picture. The only time I think I've ever used live sort of AR stuff is live translation. Like when I was in
right,
Taiwan, I was just pointing at stuff and it was like, it's this cool.
yeah,
I didn't want to take a picture and do it, just point at it. But it's outside of translation, unless I'm pointing it at like a car. What car is this? But I'll just take a picture of it. I don't know. It's cool, but it's like it's just that. It's just oh, cool gimmick. I'll use it once, and then I don't think I'd call on it much.
yeah. Yeah, so that's Copilot Vision for mobile. Like as we said, we're not very impressed with this. It's fine. It's one of those catching up features that Copilot probably needs, because Google can do it and Apple can do it, and so Microsoft can now do it as well. So that's pretty fun. The next stuff I want to talk about are the pages and deep research stuff, because I think this is a big deal for those of you who are a big fan of Notebook LM. Now, I know, Ben, you've been using Notebook LM recently. Do you want to walk us through these announcements and tell us what it's all about?
So I'm brand new to Notebook LM. I'd heard about it from friends who were like raving about it, but at the time I just wasn't really taking in what it was. I was just like, oh, it's just another chatbot, but it's not. It's one of those that's it doesn't rely on the cloud for stuff. You can feed it your own sources. It doesn't just guesswork stuff. I've really fallen in love with it, but it's because like our company uses the Google Docs or whatever you want to call workspace, and it's owned by Google, which I didn't even know. But it's got these sort of like goofy, playful features where you feed it all your own sources, and then it does a thing where it generates a podcast. And I thought that was really fun. It can be a bit cringy. It can often be cringy, to be honest. But then seeing that they're doing that, I'm really into that because I'll sort of do tons of like heavy duty research and then sort of get on the verge of burnout. And I'll just play the podcast and just listen to what an AI thinks I'm telling it. And it's really, really cool. So seeing Microsoft sort of saying like, you made this, I made this. I'm fine with it because I will use this. But I'm so shallow on the surface. There's all kinds of stuff that Notebook LM does that I haven't even like gotten into, but the sort of localized inferencing and manual sources and the podcast thing alone has already sold me on Notebook LM. So if I can get that, I'm definitely into it.
Yeah, and so Microsoft is basically announcing its version of that with deep research and
Yeah.
pages. Deep research is a feature that will allow Copilot to conduct complex multi-step research tasks more efficiently. So you can feed it multiple sources of information, and it will process all of that together. And so you can use Copilot as essential as like a network of information based on just these specific files of information. So instead of reaching out to the internet for like a vast array of answers, it can be like just focus. Oh, you can ask it to focus on these specific things that you fed it, and it can provide answers and organize information from those files, which is kind of cool. And Pages is a similar thing. It's like a more open canvas for Copilot. So you can go in, you can edit responses, you can add images, you can move things around. Microsoft says you can organize your thoughts and content from chaos to calm. It takes all your scattered notes, content, research, whatever it may be, and puts it in a canvas that Copilot organizes, simplifies, and helps you with your first rush draft to your very final edits. So that's kind of cool. If you are a Notebook LM user, this is essentially Microsoft's answer to that. I haven't used Notebook LM and I haven't used this Copilot stuff yet, so I can't compare the two as of yet. One might be better than the other, given one has been out for a while and the other has only just been announced. That will likely be the case for a while. But Microsoft is clearly coming after the Notebook LM crowd, and I in a way also addressing some of the criticisms the new Copilot has. Because if you remember, a year ago, Copilot had a completely different interface, and it was a lot more capable in regards to things like plugins. It was a much more friendly developer tool as well, and it had, I think, a feature called Notebook, which let you put like a whole bunch of text into it, and it would process that whole stuff. And then they moved to this new Copilot with the new interface, and they sort of dumbed it down a little bit. They made it much more simple, much more human, and they sort of, like I said, repositioned it as not a sort of developer tool, like a hardcore AI function tool, but as a sort of more consumer facing friendly tool designed for normal people to ask it normal things. And so with that change came a regression in functionality, and to this day we still don't have things like plugins. We're still missing that from the new Copilots. But these new features, Pages and deep research, are definitely a step towards bringing Copilot back to that more complex functionality for those who need it. So you'll be able to go into it along with Think Deeper and stuff and basically give it a whole bunch of your own information and tell it to process all of that, and then you can take it into Pages, format and organize it in which any way you like, and get to work on whatever project it is you're working on, which is pretty fun. Are you going to try this, Ben, over Notebook
Yeah,
LM?
I was going to say, so it's the Pages part that I'm the most unfamiliar with, and I've got nothing to compare it to. The deep research and stuff obviously sounds like Notebook LM. That's the easy comparison to make, but Pages is like nothing I've messed with. It sounds interesting. I know Notebook LM has a thing called Mind Map that I haven't even like played with. It might be like that. I don't know, but it sounds good as somebody as chaotic as me. That yeah, when I'm researching something, it's 20,000 tabs and a couple of notepad windows. So
Yeah.
it might, maybe it will help me. I don't know, but I'm going to try all of it. Of course I am. But yeah, it's one of the easier sells for me having used Notebook. It's funny how we've done a better version of this, or we're implying that we have, is one of the easiest things. Instead of we've made a brand new thing, it's, oh, I like that thing, but it's easier now. I'm into it.
Yeah. You also mentioned podcast, which is another thing Microsoft did announce for Copilot. It's not directly tied to the deep research thing. You can just ask Copilot to generate a podcast for you now, and it will. So you can ask it; it will generate podcasts based on topics you ask it to make podcasts about. So if you're talking to it about, I don't know, World War II as an example that comes to mind, you can be like, "Hey, can you turn this into a podcast?" And it will generate a virtual podcast for you. And so you can sit there and listen to whatever it has to say about World War II. And what's really cool about this is that you can even sort of involve yourself in the podcast. So as Copilot's talking, you can butt in with your own thoughts and opinions, and Copilot will respond to you as if you were sitting on the podcast with Copilot. And so you can host your very own very own podcast with Copilot if you like. And I think that's kind of cute. Again, this is another one of those features that I don't think I'm going to use. I guess it's handy if again, like the Notebook LM example, if you have loads of different sources of information, you just need to consume it in some form, and you're not very good at sort of reading it off the page. That makes sense. But if it's about any random old topic, I don't. I already hate it when my friends send me voice notes. I don't want that. I want you to text me because it's easier. I don't want to sit down and listen to a virtual voice talk to me about World War II for an hour. I just don't want that.
I think you should try it. Honest, I think you should, because you just like I do have got premium access to Notebook LM. I think you should try it. Ask it about yourself. Ask it about Windows Central. You'd love to hear a podcast about yourself. But no, the Notebook LM can do the same thing where you interrupt it and you can sort of guide the conversation. Because if you don't give it any prompts, it usually gives you quite a long sort of rambling thing. But
Yeah.
it is cool. You're just gonna have to think of a topic. Think of something that's not like even work related, of
Yeah.
some fiction or something. Give it a topic. Give it a load of sources. You can just give it Wikipedia articles, and you can give it YouTube videos, but it just takes the transcription. I don't know if Copilot's going to do the same thing. It might do, but it's not really interpreting the audio. It's just getting the subtitles. But it's still a cool thing.
Yeah. Google's in it.
And
Sorry, go on.
no, I was just gonna say it sometimes the subtitles are a bit dodgy, so I don't often do that one. But
Yeah.
I'd say give it a go, because if you like the Notebook LM version, I don't see why you're not going to like the Copilot one more, just because it'll be
Yeah.
right there.
I was going to say Google probably has an advantage with YouTube there because obviously Google owns YouTube, and I can't imagine they're not harvesting all of that video data for AI related
Yeah,
gains. And so, yeah, you know what? I'm not surprised you can just feed it a YouTube video and it can just basically know exactly everything about that video quite quickly.
yeah.
So, yeah,
But
Microsoft doesn't
again,
have that.
I found it to be the sort of flakiest source.
Yeah,
At first, I was like, "Whoa, cool! I can just feed it like somebody's speech." But then when I've looked at the transcription, and it's getting words wrong, and it's trying to source things, and it's like, no, I just don't trust it anymore. So proper handwritten stuff is a lot better than the YouTube source. So I
yeah.
don't know if Microsoft will even bother.
Yeah. So there's a couple more things Microsoft announced today at its event. One of them is called Copilot Shopping. Now, again, this is one of those things that I feel like Copilot used to be able to do when it had plugins, and then it went away when plugins disappeared. But it's now sort of back, and so they've announced a new personal shopper feature, so it can do research for you, build comparisons, offer advice. It can let you know when price drops for certain items have been identified. And it can even let you make purchases directly through the Copilot app. So it can basically do your shopping for you. Again, this is very similar to the action stuff, but more monetarily focused, I think. It's the same conversation we had earlier. I don't know if I'm ready for this to to be a thing. It's very much trust the process type thing. But yeah. Have you got any more thoughts on that?
I hate spending my money. I don't buy enough. I buy things in bulk,
Yeah.
and I don't really have an urge to sort of spontaneously buy stuff. So I really don't think I would use Copilot for that. But I get it. It's not for me, and I'm fine with that. I know people that would use it, so
Yeah.
it's cool. But I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to say anything on how I feel about it, because it's just not for me. I'd have to really force myself to use it. I don't think I care, but it makes total sense, especially around, like, I guess, deal seasons. If you gave it something, maybe because I think Edge is doing it, where you can put something on a price watch list. If you go, hey, this is on sale, and you just go, okay, buy it and ship it here. Cool. I don't mind that during Black Friday or whatever. But yeah, I don't spend sort of random. Well, Steam games, sure. Yeah, I'll buy a Steam game on any random day, but that's it.
Mm.
Unless it's going to do that for me, and I hope it doesn't.
I do feel like going to Copilot for all your shopping does take away the pleasure that is retail therapy.
Yeah,
If
because
you're
at that point you just sat waiting for deliveries, and it's like, oh, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're somebody who thrives off pressing buy now on items, asking Copilot to do it will take away that thrill, and so you probably won't want to use Copilot for this. But it's nice that it's there for people who just do need it for like their weekly shop, for a food shop, whatever it may be. I'm sure this will be a nice addition. It is cool that it will do like price comparisons, and it will keep an eye out for price drops for you, so it can ping you, I guess, through the Copilot app on your phone whenever it identifies a price drop for an item you've asked it to keep an eye on. That's kind of cool because right now I think most people use a web browser for that, extensions and stuff in Chrome and Edge, which allow you to keep an eye on prices, and whenever they do drop, they do ping you and say, "Hey, this has dropped to its lowest price." Yeah, and that's really handy. And having an assistant that keeps an eye on it and is able to ping you wherever you are, I think is quite nice as well. All right, the last thing they announced, bringing it back home, because remember where Copilot started. It started as Bing Chat. It was a search functionality. Bringing it back to where it began, Microsoft announced Copilot Search today, which is a more advanced version of searching the web in Copilot. It is on the Bing website, but it has its own dedicated page, and it looks like Copilot. But when you type in your search query, it will use AI to bring you results and stuff. And so this was already this isn't really new, I don't think. The interface is a bit updated, but this functionality has been part of Copilot for a long time, especially Bing as well. You've been able to go to Bing and do a Copilot search in Bing for a while. Copilot search is just the formalization of that functionality. And so if you're somebody who wants to use to do an AI search rather than like a traditional internet search, you can do that. And Google has been doing this for a while as well. Whenever you type into Google and something, you more often than not, you get a AI result at the top these days. This is similar to that, but a little bit more dedicated. So you type in your result, your question, and more of the interface would be an AI based answer. And so that's kind of cool. But Ben, I'm curious because Dan has said to me in the past that he basically only uses AI to search the web now. I'm still very much in the camp of traditional search is king. I like typing in a query into a search box, seeing a page of links and clicking into links to see the answer that I'm looking for. Where do you fall on this?
Yeah, I was just about to say. I think Dan, unfortunately, though he's not here, is the proper person for this question because of that.
Yeah.
Because he's telling us almost every day that he's like, I don't even use search anymore. He's really proud of that fact, and he likes asking AI for stuff. Yeah, I'm sort of half and half, but I think I'm more on your side. I like search, just plain search for facts and but I like yeah, I like asking Copilot for frivolous stuff. Things where if it's wrong, doesn't matter. I'm just asking it about fiction or books or something like that. But if it's yeah, that's sort of where do I need to look to spend my money? I'm still doing search. I think I don't know. It's just growing up with the internet, I think, and seeing how search engines have gone and knowing how to search and get the results that you want, sort of fighting against that sort of AI overview. I'm very much still into traditional search, but I am using AI search for some stuff. It's the way it's going, right? Because you got ChatGPT has got its search. Yeah, you've got Google's Gemini AI overviews or whatever. It's all going to go this way, and I understand, but there's no way that I would use it 100% of the time. I just couldn't. I'm trying to think of like a really, really solid example. I think the most obvious one for us, especially as Windows, is if you ever get an error message, you just go straight into a search engine and just type the error message.
Yeah.
You just go, could not open this, and then it gives you like a hex address, and you just Google it. Because all you're doing is you're seeing how many people have searched that exact thing. I'm not saying, hey, Copilot, Photoshop crashed when I was doing this, and it said this, and it would just go, I don't know. You need to just search the error message. It happens with games, we have it all the time with Call of Duty stuff. That it's like Call of Duty has error 3001. What does that mean? I have to go on the internet and find out. I'm not asking Copilot. I'm just typing that error message, which I guess AI would have a crack at it, but I know for a fact I could just get through the search process a lot quicker and just get my information. If Copilot can become better and faster at that, then cool. But I don't think it is yet. I quite like using Copilot and AI search as just sort of a fun, hobbyist thing. I just like asking it goofy questions and like when you sort of you can't sleep and how many miles is it to the moon and stupid stuff like that, but not which headphones should I buy. I'm still using traditional search for stuff like that. So I'm half and half, but I'm more on your side. I think AI is a fun thing, but it's not replacing search entirely for me, not for a while.
Yeah. So that's basically it for the Copilot event. It was, like I said, it was about an hour long, maybe a bit over an hour, and it was entirely Copilot. I think we were all of us were secretly hoping for a little bit more than Copilot, given it was Microsoft's 50th, maybe some Windows news, maybe some Surface news, but sadly, we got none of that. It was just Copilot. Ben, what are your thoughts on the event as a whole, as one an AI event and as two a 50th anniversary event?
Yeah, so I wanted more of the 50th anniversary event out of it, which does
Yeah.
seem to still be going on, but we just can't see it, which is a shame. So I would have liked them to do like two live streams, one that starts at the end of the AI stuff, which is obviously aimed it's about consumers, but there's like OEMs and all that watching, and this is the direction it's going in. But if it was all just going to be the fun stuff about Microsoft 50th, because we've been writing about it all week, right? We've been writing editorials. I've written my own about how MSN Messenger and Front Page and Windows Movie Maker and all these stuff that they completely changed my life. Getting access to the internet and having a Windows computer, it's completely formed who I am. And seeing it over time, the family computer going from 95 to 98 to XP, to me starting to take it to pieces and break it. I wanted to see more of that. I really wanted to see the celebration of stuff, and seeing like Bill Gates was there and Steve Ballmer and stuff. Yeah, I just craved more. It's cool to see Dan there live blogging it and seeing the photographs, but like I want that. I want that. I want more of that nostalgia. And they uploaded their own page with it was a real interactive thing, where you could download the wallpapers, and it was a nice little thing of Clippy and Minesweeper and stuff. Like, yeah, I really, really buy into the nostalgia, because Windows 98 to XP was like really formative for me, and I wanted to see them talk about that more. The original Xbox was a hell of a point for me of being a big PlayStation guy, and then Xbox being like, oh my god, it's a PC. It's rose tinted stuff, but I wanted more of that. I wanted them to stream more of that, and we've sort of been building up to that all week, and then it was just Copilot, Copilot, Copilot. Okay, goodbye, but we're going to keep talking about it without you. And I'm like, no, let me in then. I want to let me in. Take me over to Redmond.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to see that.
The event did abruptly end as well. He was talking, he said thank you, there was some applause, and then the stream just died.
Yeah, see ya.
that was it. And so yeah, I agree. I think as an AI event, thumbs up. As a 50th anniversary celebration, major thumbs down. There was basically nothing celebratory about the 50th in the live stream itself. That was all for the people that are there. And as I said at the top of the show, I think that's a bit unfair, because there's more than just Microsoft employees and selected members of the press that are fans of Microsoft. There were lots of us at home that are also fans of Microsoft who would have loved the celebrations just as much as, or if not more than, a lot of the people in the audience there. But sadly, we will never get to see. I don't think Microsoft's going to upload it after the fact, to be honest. So, and I think the reason why they're not streaming it is because they're sort of making jokes about themselves. It's one of those things where at your birthday party, you sort of make jokes about all the mishaps you've had, the missteps, this, that, and the other, all the successes as well. But based on the live blog that I'm looking at, that Dan's currently writing, it does look like Microsoft has been sort of making fun of itself a little bit at this event, and so maybe it makes sense that it wasn't live streamed. But yeah,
Doesn't that help though? Doesn't that humanize you so much though? I feel like that would do wonders for him to just to show that real human side, especially with Copilot becoming this sort of conversational humanized thing. Just be regular people for just a minute and poke fun at yourself. It's just natural. It's like yeah, I know what you're saying, and yeah, it makes business sense, I guess, but like if you're doing it as a celebration of yourself and the people that have used you for 25 plus years, then share it somewhere.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the event, and the next event, as we currently believe, will be in May. It'll be Microsoft Build, and hopefully that's when we'll hear more about Windows, because we heard, other than the visual Copilot, Copilot Vision stuff, we had no Windows announcements today. There was nothing about 25H2, nothing about the new Start menu, which we'll be talking about in a second. Just nothing. It was all Copilot, and that is a little bit disappointing, but it is what it is. And Microsoft didn't advertise it anything more than that. So, it's on us for expecting more, and so that'll teach us for hoping.
You kind of banking on one of those one more thing moments in it.
I genuinely
12.
was. I was hoping that Mustafa would be done on stage. He'd walk off, Satchel would come back out and go, one more thing. And then he would announce Windows Phone 12.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
50th. But no, sadly, that did not happen. So yeah, Dan will be back next week. I'm sure he'll have a lot more to say about the event. There was a protest midway through the event. We're not going to talk about it much here because details are still sort of coming out about it. But Dan will definitely be the one who goes through all of that next week on the show. So tune in for that. We should move on to the start menu stuff because that to me was the biggest news of the week. Whenever Microsoft touches the start menu, it is always a big deal. And so this week in the latest Insider Preview build, Microsoft didn't announce, but it was spotted by Phantom of Earth on X. He is a fantastic sleuth at this thing, at this stuff. He goes into the builds every week and he finds all this hidden stuff that Microsoft isn't ready to talk about yet. And he's done it again this week with the start menu. So he identified a new start menu layout, which is quite different from the start menu we currently have. It's much bigger. It shows more pinned apps and it combines the apps list view with the main view. So there's now just one page with everything. So you're pinned along the top, recommended in the middle, and your apps list at the bottom. I think this change is being made to appeal to Windows 10 users, in my opinion, because that's what the Windows 10 start menu looks like, right? You have your pinned apps, the live tiles on the right, and you have your all apps list on the left. And I think lots of users like that. And so Microsoft is trying to do the same thing here on Windows 11 by putting it all in one interface for you to see. Instead of it being right and left, it's top and bottom, but it still works the same, in my opinion. And so in addition to that, they're also addressing some customizability issues or concerns or criticisms people had about the Windows 11 start menu, where you couldn't turn off certain functionalities like the recommended feed. A lot of people don't want the recommended feed. They don't find use in it, but the start menu on Windows 11 currently, you can't change that. It's just there and you have to see it. The new start menu, at least currently, you can turn it off. If you turn off all the recommended options in settings for the start menu, it will remove that recommended feed from the start menu entirely. So you can just have pinned and your all apps list. And I think a lot of power users are going to be very, very excited about this. Ben, what are your thoughts on this? Do you even care about the start menu?
What makes you say that? No, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that for the sort of Windows 10 comparison. Yeah, obviously with end of life coming, it's a non-stop topic. I know a lot of people that are holding on to 10 sort of inexplicably. Well, I know why, but it's like, come on. But yeah, so I actually, while you were talking, opened my start menu because I forget what I even have pinned. So I'm such an old geriatric. So the start menu to me is just almost nothing. I sort of hit it and rapidly type something. I don't even type the whole thing. I type like PH Photoshop. I type S Spotify. I'm done. I don't even hardly use it. But I'm also the type that formats reinstalls Windows every 6 months, if not more. Just sort of habitually I do it, and also I get to see the out of box experience more. But I've just been doing that every year of my life. So I don't really customize the start menu too much with pinned things. I know like Richard that we work with loves a clean desktop. My desktop is full of icons, but they're all grouped for reasons. So everything I want is on the desktop or it's pinned on the taskbar. So the start menu just kind of is there, but I know I get the sort of iterations it's been through, especially at the beginning of 11, and this changes sound good. Maybe I'll start using stuff like that. The recommended stuff I don't like. No, I'm definitely on that side. But yeah, it's just kind of the quick launcher for me. It's the shortcut to things, but I feel like I'm just more rapid with typing the first letters of an app than even a pin is. So like to me, it's not going to change much to me unless they do something really cool, and maybe I'll just force myself to start using it, and benefit there. I suppose I should, but I just don't use it enough to notice.
So do you just pin everything to the taskbar?
The only thing I have in my taskbar is File Explorer and Edge. That's the only things that are pinned. And then, yeah, everything on the desktop I have, like I've got Photoshop, I've got DaVinci Resolve, I've got all my work stuff along the top. And then I've got like game stuff down the left with Steam and all this type of stuff. But I've got quite a big monitor, high resolution, so it doesn't bother me. But on the actual taskbar, it's like the opposite of a Mac. I see people with Macs, and Macs is just like permanent pins, isn't it, all the way? And I look at that and I'm like, oh my god, but that's just how they are, Mac OS. But yeah, I've got Explorer and Edge, and that's it.
That's insane to me. See, this is what fascinates me about Windows users. Everyone uses Windows slightly differently, which is why there was such an uproar about the taskbar being fixed at the bottom of the screen on Windows 11. Lots of people
Mm.
like the taskbar being on the side or at the top on Windows 10, but you can't do that in Windows 11, which explains why there was such outrage when that change was made. But for me, like, so you say you basically just use the desktop, right, for your apps. You have your icons on the desktop, and you go to there for that.
Yeah, pretty. There are some things I don't want on there because I don't use them enough, and I'll
Yeah,
just leave them not even pinned, but I'll just open them occasionally because I know I can get to them quick by typing it. I can't
yeah.
even give you an example. I'm trying to think of
No,
something, but
that's fine. But
I
I
think
just
it'll
find it.
just be like settings, you know?
Yeah,
I'll do settings,
yeah,
or
yeah,
I'll type remove if I want to uninstall something, or I'll type, display or something like that. I'll get to a control panel thing
yeah.
on the start menu.
Yeah. See, I just find it fascinating because I use Windows so differently then compared to you. My desktop has nothing on it. I hide icons, so no shortcuts to programs on the desktop. I pin my most used apps onto the taskbar. So I currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 apps. No, sorry, 10 apps pinned, which includes Edge, File Explorer, Store, Outlook, Word, WhatsApp, Telegram, Slack, Vanilla, which is our CMS, and Spotify, and then everything else goes in the start menu or in as you said, search. I'll search for an app if it's not pinned anywhere, but all of the sort of stuff that I use less often but still use relatively frequently is in the start menu. But the things I use the most are in the taskbar. Nothing on the desktop. I don't know if anyone uses Windows like me. I feel like I'm in the minority there because I know a lot of people still use the desktop for everything. I've seen, you've seen those images online of people with every single gap of the desktop full of an icon. It's just like, whoa, calm down.
No, I can't do that. I was in that bad when I was like a teenager, I was in that bad habit where I would save to desktop. I can't do that anymore. I used to have
Yeah.
untitled, untitled 2, untitled 3, and it's like, no, 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 no. I had to put a stop to that.
I did. I used to try and use the desktop as a scratch board in a way. In progress files would go onto the desktop, and then I'd have shortcuts to different areas like documents and pictures and this that, and the other, where I would basically file them. This was years and years ago now, probably Windows Vista days maybe. I don't know. I don't know at what point I stopped doing that, but I think I just felt it was too messy because it was like because do you remember Bump Top, the app Bump Top? Windows.
No.
It was a third party app that turned your desktop into a 3D desktop, and so you could pin app shortcuts and files onto like the wall and sides of your desktop.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to describe. You need to look it up to see what I mean. But yeah, you could like it had like physics, so you could throw icons around, and it was it was really quite cool. I tried to do that with like the 2D standard Windows desktop, use it as a scratch board, but yeah, I was never able to do it. And I guess I'm too much of an OCD freak to these days to have it on the desktop. I just need everything to be clean in like either the taskbar or the start menu. And I also have to have my taskbar at my start menu full of icons as well, even if I don't have enough apps to fill it. So I just find random things to pin to it, so it looks nice and even with the grid perfectly aligned and stuff. So yeah, I actually
Imagine
don't
if we
have
had to use
OCD.
each other's computers for a week. You'd have a breakdown, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I don't have OCD in real life, I promise. But when it comes to Windows, I am a clean freak when it comes to um, Windows desktop, which is interesting. And you mentioned Mac as well. Mac is interesting because Mac doesn't have a start menu really. It does have an all apps list. I think they call it Launchpad, and it's just a grid of icons essentially. But with the start menu is unique to Windows in a way because Android and iOS just has a home screen and an apps list. Uh, Android is the same thing. Mac has the dock and the desktop. And then Windows has the taskbar, the start menu, and the desktop. So the start menu is like this overflow menu for additional things. Um, but you're right. I do wonder how many people actually even use the start menu these days. I've seen, I want to say, hundreds of people in my life using Windows 10 where they open their start menu and it isn't customized. It's either set as the default layout or they've unpinned everything and it's just the little apps list menu. I don't, yeah, I do wonder how much usage the start menu actually gets because I know obviously there was huge fallout when Windows 8 came along. Maybe back then people were using the start menu more and it was still a heralded part of the operating system. Today, if Microsoft did make a drastic change to it or even outright removed it, would people feel so bad about it? I don't know. At this point, I think it's a staple. It's funny enough, we're talking about this on the 50th anniversary of Microsoft. I think the start menu is one of those things that you can't remove because it is like part of the identity of Windows. It would be like removing, I don't know, it would be like removing the home button from an iPhone, even though they did do that. But that was a big deal when they did do that, right? I think it's the same thing here with the start menu. They can't really remove it because it is part of the product. It is Windows. When you think of Windows, you think start menu or blue screens. one of the two. On the subject of blue screens, actually, we should also talk about the fact that they've announced that they are changing the blue screen of death on Windows with the upcoming 25H2 release. They're changing it from the sad face to just like a generic Windows has failed to do whatever it needs to do screen. Funny enough, it doesn't actually mention Windows. I did predict this on the podcast back when the CrowdStrike stuff happened. I said, I bet in the future they update the BSOD to remove all references to Windows, because why tell everybody that Windows sucks? And that's exactly what they've done. The new blue screen of death does not include any reference to Windows. It doesn't go to windows.com. Doesn't say anything. It's just this device is errored out or whatever it does say, and it needs to restart. And it looks like a Windows update screen. So they're maybe even trying to hide behind it, looking like it's doing an update, which would be sneaky. But after the fallout and the backlash that Microsoft got for the CrowdStrike issue last year, it does make sense. I think that's probably about it. Is there anything else that happened this week, Ben, that you want to talk about in the world of tech or Microsoft?
I can tell you something funny that happened to me. You might enjoy.
Go for it.
So you were talking about removing the Windows or the start menu, the Windows icon, but there's no way they can do that, right? So, fun fact: I dual boot. I'm one of these people where I love Windows to death, but I'm also like not afraid of Linux. I like Linux.
Get off this podcast.
I know, I get it. I know people are coming for me now, but here's my reasoning, right? The version of Linux that I use is Fedora, but I use it with a desktop called KDE Plasma, and I use KDE Plasma because it looks the most like Windows, arguably. Most of the time, if you've got a browser open, you wouldn't tell. And I was doing something on remote desktop, because remote desktop just changed to the Windows app. They're doing all this type of stuff, right? And I was like, oh, I'll use it, get an example, stuff like that. And I was trying to use the remote desktop to connect to the PC, and I was typing the IP in, and it was like, no connection. I was like, I'm on it, I'm using it. What are you talking about? And I was shouting and swearing at my phone before I realized I wasn't even on Windows. I was on Linux, but I almost couldn't tell if it wasn't just for the missing Windows icon. But otherwise, it's the same desktop. But that's the point, is that it's too iconic to get rid of. You just can't do it. Even if the start menu is just a launcher, right? If it's just a way to boot things like command prompt, it can never, ever go away. But the fact that I thought I was still on Windows because there was something in the bottom left, because I tricked myself into thinking it was Windows, is so sort of indicative of how important the start menu is. Because I just saw something in the corner of my eye and thought it was the start menu, but it wasn't. So then I rightly went back to Windows, and everything worked fine, as it always does. But
So
on the blue screen of death, though, on the blue screen of death, my most hated thing of all time recently is error messages that just say, oops, something went wrong. Oops, sad face. That tells me absolutely nothing. You've got to give me error codes. You've got to tell me, was it the RAM? What happened? It just can't be a sad face anymore. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, no, it does. It will give you an error code along the bottom. But yeah, it gives like a friendly, your PC has crashed or whatever it might say. So that is a nice addition. I do want to ask Ben, as we were just talking about the start button and stuff. On Windows 11, do you configure your start menu to be left aligned or centered?
Left. Yeah, old school. Yeah. No, honestly, you would hate me, because if I could, I would still have it gray with the Windows 95 thing on it. I was using window blinds for a long time, Stardock and stuff like that. Yeah, it's still on the left side for me. I never liked the center aligned start menu. I didn't like the combined windows for a long time, but that was just me being an old contrarian, bloody old out. It's over the left because I think that's like, it's not muscle memory, but it's just where I expect it to be. I tried to have it in the center for a long time, but I just always put it back there. It's just personal preference. If I was forced to have it in the middle, whatever, I'll get used to it. But it's where it belongs. It's down. That's where it is on the keyboard. It's down there.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that probably just about does it for the episode. I do want to say that this past week we have been celebrating the Microsoft 50th anniversary on Windows Central with a whole bunch of content, not just the announcements that were made today, but we've had all sorts of editorials and hands-on with devices that never released, all kinds of different things just to celebrate the 50th anniversary. So you can check out all of our content at windowscentral.com/. Is it tag/Microsoft-50? I think it is.
It's /tag/Microsoft 50, but if you just go to Windows Central, it's right at the top of the page. It's pinned right at the top, Microsoft at 50. You can go right
Yeah.
there.
Ben wrote a really cool thing about some of the apps that he's used over the last however long he's been alive using Windows. What were those apps?
Easy, settle down. I know my hairline's getting there, but whoa, no, yeah, it was it was good. That article honestly was going to be a lot longer, but I realized I'd rambled on about MSN Messenger for a long time. But it was MSN Messenger just because it had to be, and I was forcing my friends away from AOL Instant Messenger and Yahoo and stuff. I had to use Trillion for a while, but I was like, no, get a .NET password and do it properly. And then it was Microsoft Front Page because I got into HTML, but then Front Page was just fantastic. It was later Dreamweaver, but Front Page was too iconic. And Windows Movie Maker before Google Video, before YouTube, people had WMV files compressed to like less than a megabyte, and they just looked awful, but it was iconic. It was such a fun program. But yeah, we've had a lot of fun. People have been doing some really, really good stories on historical stuff. A lot of old school Xbox stuff. Probably more Windows Phone. I can't remember. I had my Lumia somewhere. I don't know where I've put it, but it doesn't even turn on anymore. Otherwise, I would have done something on that. But the battery really died on that thing.
Yeah. All right, real quick, final sign off. Ben, what was your favorite version of Windows and why?
XP, Windows
Yeah.
XP, everything worked. It was the last for me, it was the last moment where just everything worked. Every PC game I owned from the beginning still worked. It was sort of all the way up to SP3. DirectX wasn't sort of locking you out. You had to upgrade. It was just the most functional, maybe not right at the beginning, but it became the most functional, the longest living, the most iconic. Bliss. My wallpaper is still Bliss. It's just it was there at a really formative time of my life, and I think that's just why it sticks with me. I know a lot of people say it's the best, but Windows gets better, but it was just there. It was at that time of my life. I think it's between 98 and XP. 98 was just a hell of a thing. You have to respect it. And obviously it went downhill a bit with 2000 and ME, but XP is just the king. I don't know if you could really fight that.
For me,
seven's great, but XP was the killer.
See, I'm very contrarian with this answer. I think for me, mine's Vista, and I know people.
All
hate
right, I'll
Vista.
see you later, Zach.
Mine is Vista because of I just think Vista was the prettiest version of Windows. The introduction of Aero there, and I know Windows 7 carried it on, but I feel like it lost its charm a little bit with Windows 7. When I look back now and I look at Vista and I look at Windows 7 side by side, I do think Vista looks prettier. I like that dark taskbar and the start menu design. I like everything about it. I like how the orb of the start button sort of pokes out from the taskbar. Just little details like that I really did enjoy with Windows Vista. And maybe just like you with XP, just being at that time in your life as you were younger. Yeah. I think that's me with Vista. I just have so much more nostalgia for Vista than I do for Windows XP.
Well, you've probably seen the same thing as me. There's like a nostalgic thing going on now. What do they call it? There's a name for it. There's like a nostalgia for that aesthetic where everything's glassy and
yes, there is a word for it. I don't remember what it is.
I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on it now.
That's gonna annoy me, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, but it was Vista that did that. Like everything was shiny glass bubbles and green, but it was like technology with nature and all this. Frutiger Aero, there you go. It was that.
That's right.
But yeah, no, I know what you mean. But Vista to me is the operating system where if I was going to launch a game, I had to kill Aero to get some of my RAM back.
You just need a better computer, Ben.
Like I can't run Crysis if Aero's running, so I was mad at it. But yeah, I did just need a better computer. I didn't have a job.
Yeah. I do. Yeah, I think a lot of people do view Vista as the moment where it all started to go wrong for Microsoft. Had Vista not gone wrong, perhaps Windows Phone would still be here today. And the reason why I say that is because I believe Bulmer has gone on record to say that one of the reasons why they did flop phones is because they were very busy trying to fix Vista. And so, the iPhone came and went, and that was during the pivotal moment where they were scrambling to get Vista on the right tracks. And so they were too focused on that and not enough on the iPhone. And so, yeah, maybe Vista is the reason why we don't have Windows Phone anymore, but it still looks pretty, and that's all that matters to me.
Good. Yeah, as long as you're happy, eh?
Yeah. Okay, I think that just about does it. We will stay on the live stream for a bit longer to answer questions from the comments section. But for those of you listening on podcast platforms, this is where we end. So thank you very much. I believe Dan will be back next week and he will go through his experience being at the event and all of the other 50th stuff that happened post the Copilot Plus event. So that would be super interesting to hear about. But until then, we will see you next week. Thanks for joining me, Ben.
Cool. See you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ben. You were a fantastic co-host.
Thank you very much. Not too bad yourself. You've been doing this a while, haven't you?
Just a little bit. Almost 10 years, I believe, next year. So
Really?
that makes me
God.
feel super old, yeah.
What was that? Junior school? Jeez.
No, I was a grown-up, just about, I believe.
Mate, you're digging at me like I'm 1 foot in the grave, so I'm 37.
Yeah, so if you can hang around, Ben, if you want to sort of hang out with
I'll
chat,
stick
you
around.
can do that, or you can head off. I'm fine with either.
Nah, let's start. I'm going to see how people are mad at me for talking about Linux.
The
It's
podcast
Richard's
apparently.
fault. I'll say that.
Yeah, Richard. So Richard Devine, who's on the Windows Central team, he is a Linux fanatic. I don't know why we hired him, to be fair, but he doesn't stop raving about it. And I'm like, come on, boot Windows. Gustav says the podcast was apparently exactly 69 minutes long, which is very nice.
Oh, end it. We've done it.
So yes, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat. If there are no questions, we can head off. If you do, the longer you put questions in, the longer we'll stay. That's usually how it goes.
We were so busy, like obviously in the back end of the site, but is there an ETA on this stuff? I don't think I saw any of that.
For what?
All the Copilot stuff.
No, oh yes. So it rolls out as of now, but gradually. So
Yeah, see, because I feel like there was a thing where Satya Nadella shared that video of him and Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer, and he's like, you can watch the full thing on Copilot, but when you click it, nothing happens. And I think that's because we've got that EU server and it doesn't have all the features. So I wouldn't be surprised if stuff rolls out that it'll be in the US and like I won't get it, you won't get it, but I don't know how that sort of goes. I feel like we get a bit of a nerfed version and it comes late because of the EU rules.
Yeah. What was the term for the glassy look in Aero now? Ben, you said it. What was it?
Oh, it's Frutiger Aero or Frutiger. It's Fruit IGR Aero. Yeah. You can search that on anything, YouTube, TikTok, and all that, and people make videos compilations of art. If anybody ever played the game Mirror's Edge, that was like the peak of it, where it was sort of glassy office and nature, and yeah, it was a really cool time.
Yeah. So those real people they interviewed at the keynote today, they must have been actors, right? I had the same thought. I think what probably happened is Microsoft reached out to some normal people and asked them to use these new Copilot features or the Copilot features they were using. And for the purpose of being interviewed. I assume they were paid some money to agree to do it. But yeah, I don't know if actor is the correct term, but I cannot imagine. Although I don't know. This is pure speculation. I don't think Microsoft randomly found these people who were already just using it and just had their own thoughts and opinions on it. I have a feeling Microsoft probably reached out to them and gave them an opportunity to use this stuff, sort of taught them how to do it, and then came back to them in a few weeks and asked for their feedback. And that's what we saw on stage, I assume. Because how else do you just randomly find people? Hey, would you want to come talk to me about this app you use?
Yeah, but only say nice things.
Only say nice things, yeah. When do you think Copilot will be able to take control of your computer, aka you tell it to do something and it does it? So, as I said on the podcast, I think from a technical perspective, we're already there. It can be done. I think Microsoft is just easing on the brakes slightly, just so it doesn't rush too headfirst into all of this, because it can feel a little bit Black Mirror, a little bit sci-fi, and not everybody is super comfortable with it yet. So, I think Microsoft is doing it in waves. So, we're starting with the it can highlight things on screen and tell you where to click. It's not too much more work to allow Copilot to do that click for you down the line. I don't know if it'll be this year. It probably won't be this year. Or maybe it will be this year. Who knows? But it's not now. And I think that's just because Microsoft doesn't want to scare too many people off. Because, if you do everything all at once, it can be quite daunting and scary. And so, especially for normal people who don't really understand how this stuff works, and just think it's magic and real AI that will turn against us. And so people might think, oh, Copilot can now delete my files. It's like, well, only if you ask it to. I don't know why it would do that just out of free will.
Just going to delete System 32 without asking you.
I didn't know until today that Aero apparently stood for authentic, energetic, reflective, and open. I did not know that either. So, wow, thank you for that interesting bit of information. Are you guys using Copilot on all your devices yet? I don't use Copilot on phone. I do use it on desktop when I feel the need to use an AI thing. But yeah, I'm not like Ben and Dan. I don't use it everywhere. I don't know why. I just can't. I can't integrate it into my workflow.
Yep. Microsoft Launcher and Copilot.
I tell you what, I do find it very interesting that Sam Altman has said nothing today about the event. He usually is like, he always likes to remind everybody of their partnership before an event. And he didn't do that today. And so there we are. All right, last call for questions, or we are about to head off.
He's too busy with the Studio Ghibli stuff, isn't
he? Yeah. Have you seen the backlash from all that? There's lots of artists.
How could I not? I am on the internet. Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah. See, that's the kind of thing Microsoft won't touch because, and this is the problem, right? As we were talking about in the podcast, the whole human aspect of it. If Microsoft is going to have it on such, strong rails, I don't know if people are actually going to ever want to be friends with it. Do you think Copilot on mobile will always be lagging behind since it's not integrated as deeply? There's definitely features it won't get if they are platform dependent, especially on the iPhone. Like the apps on iPhone are so siloed and limited. They can barely do anything with the system. Android is a bit more open, but obviously Copilot will thrive the best on Windows. That's just obviously how it's going to go. And maybe Mac OS to an extent, but Windows will definitely be the place to be if you want the most recent features or the web.
Well, you know how it could have thrived on phones, don't you?
Don't remind
Look what happened to that.
Yeah. Right. Last question. When do you think they will be announcing new devices? So we kind of were hoping they would announce them today, but then we heard earlier in the week that was not going to be the case. I believe they are being announced in May. I don't have an exact date for you. It could be around build. It could be before, but I frankly have no idea. But the month of May is when I'm hearing these devices will be announced, and then they will ship shortly thereafter, whether that be later in May or sometime in June. It will be soon after they're announced. And so those devices, for those who don't know, we're expecting a smaller Surface Pro and Surface laptop of around 12 inches or 13 inches, somewhere in that range. Smaller than the existing lineup, which is 13.8 for the laptop and 13-inch for the Pro. But yeah, we've talked about that plenty of times on the podcast previously. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
See you.